All right, I am ready to start building. I have let my slabs sit for about 24 hours now, maybe a little bit more. And so they are a little bit stiffer. Yes, they still move a little bit, but they're not super floppy, super plastic. So they're more leather hard. And that's what I want because I need them to support themselves whenever I'm start to put them together. Some helpful tools, something to score the clay with. So this is a fork. I need to clean it off a little bit. If you want your outside surface to be smooth, any sort of smoother kind of flat surface, this is a squeegee and this is a metal rib, it will work. I have water for slip. I'm working on a canvas. I have my slabs and I also have some extra clay. All right, so to begin, I'm gonna find two pieces that I want to put together. I'm gonna start with putting these two pieces together. Why? I don't know. I feel like I need to, the front of the thing, I still need to figure out which pieces are the right ones. And the back is pretty big and I would rather have something more to attach it to. All right, when you're preparing to put two pieces of clay together, it's important to score and slip. So that's where my fork comes in handy. So if I go ahead and score where I'm going to attach, that will allow my slip to get further into the surface, moistening that area for better joining. Now I know that I'm going to be joining on all of these sides, so I'm going to go ahead and score all of those sides. When I score, I like to go in all sorts of different directions. Really just roughing up the clay. I don't need super nice, neat scoring marks because they're going to just disappear once I start slipping. I'm going to take some slip. So for slipping, I use water, and all I'm doing is simply dipping my finger in the water and putting that much water where I need to join. Now, when I first put it on the clay, it is very sloppy. It's very shiny. It's not slip yet. I need to work it into the clay in order to make it slip. So once I continue rubbing it in, then it suddenly becomes matte and it's a very sticky substance, which is kind of like glue for clay. I'm gonna do that over here as well. So if it's still shiny, you haven't worked it into the surface enough. So make sure you keep working it. It does take a little bit of time and patience, but it's worth it. If you do this, if you join before you have worked the clay into the surface, it's probably going to fall apart, or it's more likely to. Now this is a big piece of clay, and instead of having it stand up on end, I'm going to have it kind of put it on its side so I have something so the table can support it a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of join these together. I feel like the first pieces that you join together are kind of the most awkward because they're just kind of flapping around. So I'm blending this seam where I have pushed these pieces together. And whenever I push together, I do use some pressure because I want them to stick together. I want that pressure to help make them stay together better. All right, now I need to support this piece of clay. It's still, it still has a little bit of flappiness. This is a big piece of clay, so I'm supporting it as I'm kind of blending in. Now, right now I have a seam. You can probably see the seam better if I do it like that. I need to reinforce that seam. I'm gonna put it on its side so it's supporting itself. I'm gonna get some plastic clay, meaning it's still very moldable. I don't need very much for this. I just need to make a small little coil. I'm going to move this to the side so I have room to roll my coil. All right, so when you roll coils, this takes practice, and even when you start, like I just started, it's very lumpy. So you need to keep it fairly round. I try to use this part of my hand. Once it gets big enough, then I can start using my fingers and kind of pulling it out. I do better when I'm standing up with rolling coils because my body weight will automatically go into my fingers. All right, I don't need very much of this, so I'm gonna make it, that one I'll leave for later. So when I say a thin, tiny coil, I'm talking about, like, this is my pinky. It's a lot even thinner than that, just because I need it to be just tiny to go in that seam. So now I'm going to go ahead and press this tiny little coil, and it's way longer than what I need, but I can easily break it off into that seam. And that is just reinforcing the seam, making sure things don't pop off. All right, so I have reinforced my seam. So now I can probably think about adding another piece. Now I'm gonna go with the back piece this time. To kind of, this is where this is going to be. So I'm going to have to slip that piece. So if I kind of rotate this, now I can slip right here because that's where it is going to join with this. And then I'm going to slip here because when I flip it over, that's where I'll need to slip. Eventually it'll all be slipped. I just like to slip as I go because it does absorb into the clay. And so maybe by the time I get to joining that side, the slip is already absorbed. So I kind of I score right at the very beginning, but then I slip as I go and join. Slipped, so I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to press in down here, kind of making that seam nice and solid. A little bit of pressure is amazing. Now I'm going to have to curve this up. All right, so I got two more seams that I need to reinforce. Once I have reinforced, then I can look at the other side. So I'm going to go ahead, I have some coil left over from my previous seam and I'm going to use that. I am supporting the outside of my slab as I'm pressing my coil in so it doesn't pop off. Reinforced, I feel a little bit more confident in picking it up and kind of looking at the outside seams and cleaning those up a little bit. Now I do have texture on the outside of my slabs for this piece, and I want to be careful not to smooth that texture away. Like, I put it there for a reason. I want to see it later. So I'm just kind of very gently kind of smoothing over here. and you can't see a seam anymore, you should feel pretty confident that it's going to stay together. If you can see that seam a little bit, you need to keep blending a little bit more, making sure that seam kind of vanishes. All right, I have my 2 final pieces. I like to put something in here to support it because it's just kind of hanging out. So a lot of times what I'll use is just kind of crumpled up plastic grocery bags as a supportive wall as I'm building. Now I don't want to have so much in there that it starts to misshape. This is just a little bit of a support. sure that I don't trap any pieces of bag in my seams. Once I get that piece on, I can remove the bags and reinforce the seams on the inside. Now this does get tricky because especially if you're making a really skinny vase, it's really hard to kind of get in those areas. So sometimes using a tool will help you. All right, so I don't have the wooden tool with me, but I could use this essentially if I can't reach some of those far in points. Another option is just to reinforce what you can get to. Just kind of tap on different sides just to kind of level things out. So before I attach my last bit, what I'm doing is trying to see, hey, does this fit? And if it doesn't fit, I'm going to make adjustments. And I mean, it's okay. It's not the greatest. I feel like it's a little bit tall up here. So that's where I can kind of slice off some of the extra if I have too much clay. Too much is always a better problem than not enough. Another thing that I notice is that I actually beveled this wrong. I beveled it opposite of what I need. So that means that I may have to make this a little bit shorter to make it work. So I cut off the wrong bevel. I needed to actually bevel to this direction. So I'm going to re-bevel that. So now that will fit together more like a puzzle. And then I need to figure out, how much extra I have over here. So I'm going to mark it. I'm going to trim. And then I am going to bevel. There is always room for error. Things get misshaped as you're handling them. I mean, it's a very organic substance, and trying to create a more geometric shape with an organic substance means that there are going to be issues that are going to arise. But that doesn't mean that we have to scrap it all and just give up. We just have to adjust. texture that I created is causing a little bit of problem. It's causing some weak areas in the clay, and so it's kind of cracking. So anytime I see something like that happen, I just smooth it back in. And then once I get this all together, it'll be okay because it'll be supporting itself. I'm gonna bring back my plastic bags. I like to put them in one at a time because that will have a little bit easier removal once I have cut an opening for this. If I put them in all together, sometimes they get jammed in there and it's really hard to get the bags back out. So I just make sure one at a time, and I'm not packing it too hard. Again, this is just a little bit of a support, but not, you know, I want it to give a little bit. And I don't want any little loose pieces of plastic getting in my seam. So I gotta make sure I pay attention to those seams and where the plastic is. I'm not really liking how that is joining, so I'm probably going to be doing some considerable smoothing right there. When I'm smoothing, I got to be careful too. If I press too hard on this, it's probably going to cave in. So yes, I want that little dip to go away, but I also don't want the whole thing to fall apart. So once you have it all together, your work is not done. And it's important to remember that this is actually one of the most important stages, cleaning it up. Now I'm not completely done. I still have to cut a hole here and put another, I was gonna put a coil, little coil addition to be the opening of it, and so it looks more like a vase. But I have a lot of cleanup to do. Perfecting the form is very important for how it looks in the end. So you don't want to go through all this effort and then you don't clean up your form, and so then it's just not aesthetically pleasing, and you're definitely not going to be nearly as proud of it if there's all these imperfections. Everything that's seen and everything that's on the clay is seen. Glaze doesn't cover things up. Typically, if there's cracks and all that, glaze will kind of settle in there and make it more obvious that there was an issue. So making sure that we have perfected it to the best of our ability is very important. So all the areas that are supposed to be smooth, I am smoothing. I'm also paying attention to perfecting my seams and getting those to look nice. I like to misshape some things that are like, maybe I don't really like how it looks, and maybe keeping it in its true geometric original form that I had anticipated isn't going to actually work. And so I will kind of manipulate the clay, make it a little bit more organic, so those little imperfections that has happened in the building process will look like they're more on purpose and not accidental mistakes. So I'm going to continue cleaning this up, and then I will show you, once this gets a little bit firmer, I can cut a hole and pierce through the clay and add some sort of coil finishing neck and finish the form.